hunting us all down. We called them Gorgons after the mythical creature Medusa.
Entertainment, boredom destroyer, nail-biting excitement, an opportunity to escape your current reality and lose yourself in an action adventure so you can live a more exciting life through the characters of this story. Now, if that sounds up your alley, you want to know my next guest.
You are watching Influence Media, PSI TV, the Netflix of biz brands.
Erin is a multi-published author, and his Dissonance post-apocalyptic fiction hexalogy is the focus of today's interview. So although this book is on Amazon in the teen and young adult section, me, a 58-year-old woman, did enjoy reading this. So I believe you adults will enjoy it too. Erin Ryan is an award-winning and best-selling author of the Dissonance saga. Now, those who know him as a husband, a dad, a Christian, a voice actor, and all-around big goof. So let's welcome Erin. Thank you for being on the show today.
Big goof reporting in.
All right. So Erin, I did read your book. It was a page turner. And in the opening pages of Dissonance, you make this statement. I'm going to read it. I want every one of my readers to know that not once did I employ, nor will I employ, the use of AI to sculpt any part of my stories. Those who know me know that I'm staunchly and adamantly opposed to such cheats. Now, why did you make that statement?
Well, I was actually, I don't remember which book that I read that had that foreword in it, but I thought it was absolutely appropriate. AI, I'm currently a voiceover artist as well, so I run two parallel career tracks as storytellers. One, I am a storyteller, and two, I tell other people's stories as a voiceover artist. AI is really eroding the voiceover industry right now. It's what's driven me back to authoring. And I've seen our income level just drop and the amount of, worthy jobs drop because of AI. So you can use AI to tell a whole story. I will never do it. You can use AI to create components of a story. I won't do that either.
Well, interesting, because AI definitely is a thing today. So, Erin, Dissonance has a character with my namesake, Trudy.
Right. Yeah.
It also has another character in there named Oliver, and my brother happens to be named Oliver. So tell me, what inspired this series, this storyline?
Yeah, so we actually watched I Am Legend, which we'd seen before, the night before I put pen to paper for the very first paragraphs of Dissonance Volume 1 Reality. And I was really fascinated by the whole, I knew I was going to make a return foray into fiction writing by virtue of the fact that AI is eroding the voiceover career. So I knew I was going to write stories. What kind of story was up in the air? But we watched I Am Legend. I was really intrigued by the, what's that? Will Smith.
Will Smith, yeah.
Yeah, when you take the human custodians out of the way, when they've been removed, Earth is unmaintenanced and it grows wild up through the cracks, and it's just, 8 feet blades of grass, animals in the streets. I wanted a post-apocalyptic scene like that without the zombies, with a different enemy. Of course, mankind is always the worst enemy of mankind. So I knew that had to be the bedrock of a deeper story, a subtle undercurrent running throughout the narrative. But my favorite movie, as I'm sure it is yours and everyone else's, is Aliens from 1986, James Cameron. I love that movie. And I wanted to do an Aliens book. Very different types of aliens, very different type of narrative and objectives, but military involvement as well. So it does mirror it a little bit.
Okay. So, Erin, you identify as a Christian, which is something else we have in common. What if, and this is just a thought, inspiration, because as an author myself, we get inspired, right? And you just said you were inspired, you were able to pinpoint the inspiration, but what if inspiration is actually a divine download or something more? Like, the example of Contagion was kind of prophetic of COVID, and then you have 007 tech is now our current reality. I mean, honestly, I don't think the idea of an alien invasion is kind of far-fetched. I mean, I don't know. My
Right.
father says that some of these biblical angels, as far as he's concerned, are alien interactions. So while your book and the thought of alien invasion is kind of entertaining, I think people now believe aliens have visited. Some believe aliens are already among us. It's probably not too far-fetched to think alien invasions are in the foreseeable future. What do you think?
I
Are
know.
aliens just a figment of our imagination, or do you think aliens are real, have visited, may have visited? What?
Well, I would like to say I remember the movie Contact from the 80s or late 80s, early 90s, whatever it was, with Jodie Foster. And I'll never forget the phrase that was said to her by her character's dad, who said, you know, if it is only us out there, it seems like a tremendous waste of space. Now, as a fellow Christian, I could say there's no waste with God. All of it had purpose. I think that it's feasible, plausible. Do I want the Gorgons, who are the aliens from my book, to exist? I don't know, because they're pretty, I mean, they're terrifying and they're ferocious. Aliens in and of themselves would be seriously interesting, like close encounters of the third kind aliens. Hopefully benign, hopefully friendly, hopefully no big laser guns or anything like that. It's possible. I'm not sure. What's funny is when I host these booths, these trade show booths where I'm selling my books, all the time people come up and they go like, "Yeah, man, I was abducted by aliens when I was 6." And I'm like, "It's not that kind of book." It has nothing to do with alien abduction. So I have to kind of, clarify that here and there.
Well, you did mention in your book that the character says that they thought the aliens, they were hovering there for a while, were probably angelic messengers. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, see, when you are, we all get lulled into a state of complacency. Of course, when something doesn't change, then we revert back to our state of, sleepiness. And so when the aliens invade in 2026, so we have a few years, we're okay. Nobody run yet. When they drift down silently through the sky, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them all over the planet, and they hang there at a geostationary orbit 50 feet above the ground all over, and they wait there for 90 days. And we're going at first, friend or foe, what is this? But we our complacency takes root again, and they hang there for 90 days. So we think, well, they haven't attacked, so maybe they're angelic messengers. All will be revealed in time. But that's kind of the de facto response for anything that we don't understand. We assume lack of malevolence. We assume benign nature, and honorable intent. What it isn't the case in my novels.
None good, no, not one.
That's right.
So the apocalyptic creative content, I think, is pretty popular, especially in recent history, and many before you, and I'm sure many after you, will address this very primal fear that I think all of us humans have. What do you think, especially since you've participated in it, drives this preoccupation with how humanity is likely to fare in the future?
Well, it's a really good question, because I think for the Christian, we know how the future will end up. We know where, what will happen to the earth. We know what will happen with the new heaven, the new Jerusalem coming down out of heaven from God. And we're assured of that in Revelation. So wouldn't it be interesting to think of what if something completely different happened? We can rest assured in the knowledge that we will be protected, we'll be safe, and the Bible talks about that. It's like every eye will see him, and he will not leave us comfortless. He will come to us. But the notion for all those people who are unbelievers, who don't know Christ and don't know their eternal destiny, anything could happen at that point, especially in the tribulation. What's going to happen? What's truly going to happen to the earth? I don't think that it's far-fetched. I would hope to God that everyone would make it out of such an ordeal, safely. I just wanted to write a compelling fictional narrative of what if. But as you read the story, and you've read the story, you kind of get further in and you realize, boy, mankind really is always the worst enemy of mankind. So I talked about that earlier, but you're going to find that out. It's just sad. It's always the case.
Mm. Now, Erin, you started your writing career as early as 7 years old. Tell us about that. What What was that first book you published, and did it actually get published? I mean, real published?
No, and I mean, I would take the word career out of it and just say it was more like assignment. It
Okay.
was a homework assignment. So I was 8, actually. It was 1981, in second grade, and I was given an assignment by my second grade teacher to just basically write a short novella. All of us were. So I remember it was construction paper, really crudely assembled, 3-line or 3-hole punch college rule paper, and it was called The Electric Boy. It was never published. It was, Lord, I wouldn't want that to be published. All the stick figure drawings that I drew. But what's really funny is that art imitates life and things come full circle. I wrote the book Forecast, and I recently released this book in first part of November. This book, as I was writing it, I'm realizing here I am at 51. This is 43 years later. I can't add. That's why I'm a right brain creative. I'm going, I wrote The Electric Boy all over again. The book that I wrote when I was 8, here I go again, writing it at 51. It was really bizarre as I had that epiphany. But it just kind of fostered this desire to create from a real early age. I loved it. The sad part is my mom had it. She's kept, all of our report cards and all these, early assignments. She gave it to me and I can't find it. We
Oh,
moved in August of 2020 and I can't find my book. So I wish I could find it.
yeah. So as we know, I did read Dissonance. It's the first book in your series. Now, it read like fiction, but it really seemed more like a story version of graduate level leadership. Now, I know it because I'm in a graduate level leadership course. So the survival of the characters in this book depends on a leader-follower relationship. It depends on community. It depends on this community rather than self-sufficiency. How did you execute writing leadership at that level? Do you have a background in that?
I do, yeah. I mean, I've definitely been a leader in church environments, in business as a voiceover artist or voice actor, whatever you want to call us. I was a voiceover business coach. I taught workshops. I would share on blogging and marketing and just general presence as a creative. And so I had a lot of followers. I mean, my blog at one time as a voiceover artist, I think I had close to 5,000 followers, 5,000 readers, subscribers. So I think that that's truth. There's some truth to that. This is obviously in the setting of these post-apocalyptic books. The military is really all that survived. The military bunkers where our protagonists launch out from and try to do daily recons and find food, ammo, and survivors. That's a hierarchy. That is a military hierarchy that you have to comply with to survive. There are rules in place. Unfortunately, again, as you find out, there are people in that hierarchy that prove themselves a little too nefarious for the protagonist's tastes, and he slowly becomes aware of that as the story progresses. I don't know that my book was necessarily, I wrote it as a referendum on leadership per se. Maybe I did subconsciously, but there definitely are rules to follow. And the number one rule in this story is you just don't look, because these aliens are terrifying. That was the rule.
Not everybody follows instructions very well.
Mm-mm.
All right, well, that's true. So I would say though that, there's a strategy in education sometimes to look at literature and extract stories. In fact, Jesus taught some of the biggest kingdom principles through stories. And the reason why I bring that up is because I really felt that your book had some solid leadership nuggets that someone could take away if they were to dissect the book from a leadership perspective, leadership follower perspective, surviving challenges. So I felt like, if somebody looked at the book from that perspective, not just the entertainment factor, but, how they could break down, kind of like what we did in earlier English literature in school, kind of like looking at it from like a book study kind of a thing from that. Now, your story, at least in book 1, because it looked like in the further books as I was looking ahead that there was additional timelines added, but this book goes from 2026, which we're not quite there yet, to 2042. Now, the characters survive these Gorgons, as you call them, for 16 years. What do you think now I know because I read the book, and we don't want to give away too much, but what would you say is the key to resilience for humanity in the face of pending doom, considering that, like I said, the book doesn't have that strong leadership feel, and I also feel like, the world is heading into an Armageddon type situation. So maybe this is even doom prep for all I know. So what do you think would be a strong resilience piece we should take away as a takeaway from this?
Yeah, I mean, it's really funny that you say that, because I do look at the skies in a completely different way. Having written this story, the aliens descend out of the sky silently on June 6, 26, and I find myself driving, like looking around, and it's crazy how what it does with your mind. And also the line between fiction and reality becomes very blurred. I have on my calendar, my Outlook calendar, I have the birth dates of my protagonists from the Dissonance series. I intentionally put them in there because I want to know when my protagonist birthdays are. It seems so real. And you kind of want it to be real in a sense. I think, to answer your question, though, I love the phrase out of the Hunger Games movies, the Hunger Games books. So well done, both of them. Suzanne Collins' books are they're unrivaled in terms of dystopia. But the greatest phrase I think that I pulled out of that was President Snow, and he's talking with the first game maker, Seneca Crane, and he says, there's one thing that can't be killed. It's hope. It is the one thing that is stronger than fear. So you ask me, how do these people adapt and how do they survive for 16 years? It's virtually on hope. It's the one thing that's stronger than fear. So, these guys are sent daily almost out on recon operations, out from their underground military bunker up to the surface of the earth to go see if there's anybody left alive, to find food and ammo and anything else they can do to keep themselves surviving. And that takes hope. I mean, that takes bravery and courage over fear. It takes teamwork, obviously, hence the name of the entire series, Dissonance. Dissonance is very lack of harmony. And so you would think 16 years after an alien invasion, we should be and would be getting along with each other. But no, people are still throwing each other under the bus. They're putting themselves forward. They are, throwing others to the wolves. And it's a little bit of a referendum on kind of where we are. Look back at 9/11. For a few days, maybe a month, we were all together again. We were all one in the face of unspeakable tragedy. But then we just descend back into madness all over again. It's kind of sad. Hope, though.
It's kind of sad, but you're right. Almost animalistic.
Yeah. Ritualistic, just routine behavior that is basically devoid of genuine care for your fellow man. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. That's what separates us from the animal kingdom. So in your book, you have a character, Pastor Rosie, who are a Christian. So to what extent would you say, because we have non-Christians, this book I think will appeal. It's not a faith-based book, but
right.
To what extent would you say your faith did influence or didn't influence your writing?
Yeah, and I love the question. I appreciate the question. So, as a spoiler, one of the characters receives Christ in Volume 3. And that was inevitable. It's indispensable for me as a Christian. That's the trajectory. I'm a voiceover artist. That's always such a hard word to say. It does never come off the tongue. Trajectory of one of the protagonists, that they accept Christ. Pastor Rosie was someone who's just instrumental and indispensable in the series. She is a grounding force. She's the opposite of the antagonist, who you'll come to find out who that is. She's the very mirror opposite of them. And the way that she channels wisdom in particular, love, patience, honoring, waiting, trusting, they're just huge pillars for Rosie. And I think, it's not clean fiction. It's certainly not faith-based or Christian-based fiction, although there's a very strong element in there. I had to have that in there for me. And authors write for themselves. They want to be satisfied with it first and foremost. People will read the book and go, "Ooh, aliens scary," and "Ooh, military battles cool," and "Oh, people getting eaten alive." And faith a person accepting Christ, negative review, they'll do that. I'm prepared for it. It's fine. But that is something that was indispensable to me. So, and Rosie, man, I swear, I could write a whole separate series just on Rosie, because that woman is loaded with character.
I agree. So, Erin, Dissonance is a multi-book series. It's a hexalogy.
Mm-hmm.
Is the series complete? Did you already write them all, or are some of them still in progress of being written?
No, they're all done. The last one just released on the 20th, and so I have a fairly rabid group of local fans, friends, and supporters that they love Dissonance, and I have some people that are very instrumental in the creative process, the editing process, and they have essentially just short of demanded that I write another installment. So when I wrote the trilogy, I thought I was done. That's 3 books, and then it was like, well, there's great room for a sequel. Okay, so there's 4. So I wrote the prequel. Sorry, that's what I meant, not sequel, but prequel. So now we have 4 books, a tetralogy. And then it was I had a 5-year gap from the end of the first prequel to the beginning of the first book in the trilogy. So let's fill that 5-year gap with another prequel. And now we have a pentalogy. But Vance, my good friend Vance, said, you've got to write a sequel. The way the volume 3 ends, there's room for a sequel. And he was right, and it turned out to be one of my favorite in the entire series. So lo and behold, it becomes a 6-book hexalogy. I don't think there's anything else that I could write that has not already been done or addressed or undone in the series. I've laid it to rest and I've moved on, but I am so inordinately proud of how the entire Dissonance series has turned out. It's robust. It's rich with thematic depth. Loaded with parenting through trauma, just a lot of human heart and emotion. It turned out really well. It is done, though.
So you did answer the next question I was going to ask you. If you had the full story arc before you got started, you wrote the first 3 and then the rest just kind of came out of it, which I'm glad you said it came to an end, because there's nothing that I can't stand more than it feels like, especially Hollywood, I won't say authors so much, but Hollywood milks a successful series way beyond the point, and it just starts to get, they spoil it after a while. So, but on that note, it's so exciting that the Dissonance series is being adapted for film.
We were all living our lives, ordinary people going about their business, when they came. The creatures arrived on June 6th, 2026, by the hundreds of thousands, silently drifting down out of the sky, hovering at a geostationary orbit for 3 months all over the planet, taking up positions. No one knew what they wanted, why they came, or why they wouldn't just go away. We thought they were angelic messengers. We were wrong. They suddenly came to life, hunting us all down. We called them Gorgons after the mythical creature Medusa, because their eyes had the power to paralyze us with just one look. Once immobilized, they could consume us at their leisure, leaving us to feel every agonizing bite. There was no escape. The best defense was to run. By the end of 2026, 85% of humanity had been killed off. Meet the Shipley family from Blue Spring, Kentucky. Andrew and Melissa, their children Cameron, Sissy, and Ruddy. Journey with them from the invasion of 2026 down through the years, as they desperately try to survive, eking out an existence in the shadows, preparing for the greatest counterstrike mankind has ever seen in December of 2042. All the while knowing this painful truth: one look and it's all over. The Dissonance Sci-fi Alien Invasion series, currently being adapted to screen. Visit dissonancetheseries.com.
How did you move from your work being in book form to having an actual trailer, something pitchable to the networks?
Well, the trailer is actually something that was independently produced, so it's not actual footage. It's not from the movie. It's nothing there. But I was approached, I believe, in March I think it was in March, by the assistant to Alan Roth with Act Two Media. Alan Roth is a Hollywood fellow. I'm still not entirely sure what that means. I mean, he's a jolly good fellow. That's all I know. And he won a contest that was put on, one of 5 winners. The contest was put on by Gail Ann Hurd, who is the former wife of James Cameron. And so James Cameron, who's that? You know, Terminator, Aliens, Avatar, Titanic. That's James Cameron. So I'm 3 degrees away from James Cameron. Really exciting. And he, you know, Aliens, my favorite movie of all times, is James Cameron. His assistant contacted me. At first, again, I was very cynical because we get these requests all the time, but I vetted him. He's got an IMDb listing. He's listed on LinkedIn. He is accredited. You can find, you know, the rabbit trails. And his fee for adapting it to screen was nominal, which it was within the range of what I had Googled and found. I had to reach a breaking point where I said, or a moment of truth is probably better put, where I said, if I don't do this, I'm going to regret it the entire rest of my life. He was very collaborative. He's a very gracious, really kind man. How many people can you say that about? Really kind, gracious man. He adapted it very close to the book. We had collaborative sessions every 2-3 weeks where he would share with me what else he had done. But he also develops a character Bible, a series treatment, a thematic, you know, overarching theme that he can pitch to people. So he's actively pitching right now to major streaming networks. And that's also something I don't have access to and wouldn't know how, you know, to go about that. The trailer is something I had a gentleman on Fiverr, which I'm really resistant to using, but he's produced good stuff. It's designed to help you envision the series.
So I think that is, you know, when you think of the whole investment process, you do need to give investors a visual, even if it goes in a completely different direction. It won't be the same characters. It won't be all of that. That's true. I think you're doing the right thing in terms of creating the assets that are necessary to move the book forward to eventually one day being a movie. So that's pretty exciting. This is a hexalogy series. I read book 1, but there are 5 more books. So, you know, honestly, if you're looking for good entertainment, something to curl up with, and, you know, just let your mind escape and just get into a good story, I can guarantee you this book 1 is any indication of the rest of the series and for a wild ride. Correct me if I'm wrong, you've published about 23 books. So based on your history of all this publication, I'm pretty sure you'll write some more. But are all your books fiction?
Are all my books fiction?
Yeah.
No, they're not. No, I actually have published 6 business reference books as a voiceover artist. 2 or 3 as non-voiceovers, but just, you know, business and life and having a balance there. A book on poetry. I just released a children's book actually yesterday, a picture book, and it was something that was a bedtime story that I told my 8-year-old, who is right there, I believe, that picture right there. And hi, Brennan. And I fell in love with that story as I told it to him. I said, God, this was a gift. I have to get this down, and I have to do a children's book. So I have completely morphed genres and dipped my toes in the children's book. It is fiction, of course. People would say that as to how many books I've turned out this year. I have just been so compelled to pivot and adapt and overcome, given what's happened to my voiceover career and happening to the voiceover industry. I'm under severe pressure, but a pressure that is such a pleasurable torment to write these things and hold them in your hands when you're done and go, I did this, you know, and this is so cool. It's a legacy I get to leave for my kids and family and everything.
Is there anything else that you would like to share?
There's 2 things. Number 1 is be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. Oscar Wilde said that. I absolutely believe it. People don't need another Suzanne Collins or Isaac Asimov or Tom Clancy or Michael Crichton or Stephen King or Tolkien or anybody. Pay homage? Sure. I mean, tip of the hat, you know, a nod to them as a creative influence, of course. But don't try to cookie cutter yourself into someone else's mold. It just doesn't work, and you'll be called a charlatan, an imposter. So be yourself. Offer something unique to the marketplace that is representative of the unique you. The other thing is that I would say to anybody who's a creative or an entrepreneur is adopt a mantra. I have a mantra that comes from a movie I'd like to pretend doesn't exist, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Qui-Gon Jinn said to a young Anakin Skywalker, he said, "Your focus determines your reality." I love that phrase. And I have taken on that phrase as my mantle and my anthem and my credo for being in business. Your focus determines your reality. I am so focused on authoring and becoming a successful author and best-selling author. It's happened. My books have been bestsellers. My focus was becoming a successful voiceover artist to provide for our home and pay our mortgage. Check. If I could only apply this towards fitness, life would be complete. I just need to make this my focus for a while too. But yeah, have a mantra.
You did encourage people to be unique, but with this AI taking over the way it is, AI is really just scraping the internet and putting out a lot of copycat type stuff. So I would say, I would just add to that, take a page from Erin's book. And even if you do use AI to assist you, don't let AI write the book for you. It will not be your voice. It will be the AI voice, which is usually, AIs don't really have a voice. They're scraping what others have said. So, wow. So Erin, I did enjoy the book. I'm very incentivized to read the others, and I do look forward to it coming out in movie form, hopefully. And thank you so much for being our guest today. So guys, listen, the hexalogy series, Dissonance. I read volume one of 6, but it's not the only publication that Erin has gone out on. So if you go on Amazon.com, you will definitely find all of them, but you can also connect with Erin Ryan at DissonanceTheSeries.com, and I will put that in the credits for you so you don't make a mistake in your typing. DissonanceTheSeries.com. Erin Ryan's my guest today. Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.